Welcome everyone to the Light of Zion. The Light of Zion is God's written words. And the Light of Zion will continue to shine its light to guide and to lead the chosen ones of Israel until we arrive back to Zion, our homeland. Yes, the promised land. The light of Zion will continue to shine its light for the travelers of Israel who are sojourners among the nations. Shine your light, O Yahuwah. Let it lead us to your holy mountain. Shine your light, for your word is true. Shine your light, for your word is good for me. And with that, I say again, welcome to the Light of Zion. Welcome to another episode, another presentation by the Light of Zion. Today I'm coming to you again with another thought-provoking presentation for you to think and ponder upon. Yes, today this presentation is titled The Lawless Invaders of the Land of Immanuel. The Lawless Invaders of the Land of Immanuel. For you, the descendants of Israel, you should know about your God, that your God is the only God that can tell the future from beginning. Your God is the only God that can say this will take place, and it will exactly take place at the appointed time. So Yahuwah, the God of Israel, has foretold of events that will take place. He has foretold of events that has taken place in the past, and he has foretold of the events that is taking place today. And events that will take place in the future, Yahuwah has already foretold of these events. So if you pay attention, you will understand what Yahuwah your God is doing. So let's consider this topic, the lawless invaders of the land of Immanuel. Who are these lawless invaders that will come and take over the land of Israel, of Immanuel? It was foretold that Yahuwah will bring against all Israel these invader armies. Yes, these invader armies of the nations, and that they will come and they will take over the land of Immanuel. Immanuel is another name for the Messiah. For in the book of John, when he was born, he said, you will call his name Immanuel, for he will save his people, for by means of him God will be with his people. So Immanuel is another name for our Savior and our Messiah, Yahushua. So in the book of Isaiah chapter 8, verse 7 to 8, there is written, Therefore look, Yahuwah will bring against them the mighty and vast waters of the river, the king of Assyria and all his glory. He will come up over all his stream beds, and overflow all the banks, and swept through Judah. He will flood and pass through and reaching the neck. His outspread wings will fill the breadth of your land, O Immanuel. So it was foretold that the king of Assyria, an invader nation, an invader army, will come and will spread over the land of Immanuel, and they will take over it. Yes, these invader armies, they will come and they will devastate the land of Israel. That's what it was foretold. This is because of the error of all Israel, and because of our unfaithfulness towards Yahuwah, our God. That is why Yahuwah will bring against the people of Israel these invader armies of the nations, who will come and invade the nation of Israel and take over the land from the true people of Israel. In the book of Joel, chapter 2, verse 25, there is written, I will make compensation to you for the years that the swarming locust, the unwinged locust, the ferocious locust, and the devouring locust have eaten, my great army that I sent among you. Do you hear Yahuwah said he's going to make up for the days that these invading armies of the nations has come against Israel? Because they will come, as is written, and they will cause harm. Yahuwah said he was going to send these armies against Israel because of our error, because of our unfaithfulness towards our God. That is why Yahuwah sent these armies, the first one of them being the king of Assyria, to come and take over and invade the land of Israel and scatter Israel from the land because of our error. So a good question is this. Let's consider what these invader nations will do, or the invader armies, what they will do to the land of Israel. In the book of Isaiah, chapter 8, verse 9 to 10, there is written, say, cause harm, you peoples, but you will be shattered to pieces. Say, listen, you from the distant part of the earth. Say, prepare for battle, but you will be shattered to pieces. Prepare for battle, but you will be shattered to pieces. Say, devise a plan, but it will be thwarted. Say what you like, but it will not succeed, for God is with us. So these invader armies of the nations will come against the land of Israel. They will do what? They will devise a plan to take over the land of Israel. But the prophet said they should do whatever they want, whatever their plan is, that it will not succeed. Okay? So they should prepare for battle, or they will be shattered to pieces. So say what you like, it will not succeed. For God is with us, his people of Israel. Yes, even though he put us into this condition, even though he's the one bringing the armies of the nations against Israel. But yet the nations will not succeed, for God is with us. In the book of Joel, chapter 2, verse 2 and 3, is written concerning the day when Yahuwah brings these armies against his people of Israel. It's written, "It is a day of darkness and gloom, a day of clouds and thick gloom, like light of dawn spreading out on the mountains. There is a people numerous and mighty. Say, never before has there been one like it, and never again will there be another throughout the years of all generations. Say, ahead of it a fire devours, and behind it a flame consumed, and ahead of it is like the Garden of Eden, but behind it is a desolate wilderness, and nothing can escape." So it was foretold that when Yahuwah brings these armies against the people of Israel, they will come and they will cause devastation upon the land of Israel, like a fire that ravages and destroys. They will destroy the land of Israel. They will come, and like a flame they will consume. But after they have done what they like, the land will be restored like the Garden of Eden. Yes, even though behind it was devastated, it was a desolate wilderness, but after it's going to become like the Garden of Eden because it will be restored. So yes, Yahuwah brought his invading armies against Israel because of our error. But yet, they will cause harm, but they will not succeed. For Yahuwah will restore his people. That is his promise. Yes, Yahuwah will use these invading armies to discipline Israel, to bring humiliation upon the nation of Israel, the people of Israel. But after this invading armies their plans will be shattered, for it will not succeed. Their plan to take over the land invade and take over the land of Israel forever will not succeed. Their plan to replace the true people of Israel from their inheritance, it will not succeed. For God is with his chosen people of Israel. About what these invaded nations will do, notice what is written in the book of Joel chapter 2 verse 17. It's written, "Between the porch and the altar, let the priests, the ministers of Yahuwah, weep and say, do feel pity, O Yahuwah, for your people. Say, do not make your inheritance an object of scorn, letting the nations to rule over them. Say, why should the people say, where is their God?" So what the invading armies or nations will do is that they will do what? Rule over the people of God. They will come invade and take over the land and rule over the people of God. And they will even be asking where is their God? But it is because our God abandoned us to bear punishment because of our error that these nations will do this, take over the land of Israel and the inheritance of Israel. In the book of Luke chapter 21 verse 20 to 24, there is written, the Messiah, our Savior, said this, said, however, when you see Jerusalem surrounded by encamped armies, said, then know that the desolation of her has drawn near. Said, then let those in Judea begin fleeing to the mountains. Said, let those in the midst of her leave, and let those in the countryside not enter into her, because these are the days of meting out justice, in order that all the things written may be fulfilled. So woe to the pregnant women and those nursing a baby in those days, for there will be great distress on the land and wrath against this people. And they will fall by the edge of the sword and be led captive into all the nations. And Jerusalem will be trampled on by the nations until the appointed time of the nations are fulfilled. So Yahuwah, the Messiah, said, when you see Jerusalem surrounded by these invading armies, say, know that it's time for her desolation. So let those in Jerusalem and in Judea begin fleeing to the mountain. And if you are outside, don't go in, because these are the day for meting out justice, in order that all the things written will be fulfilled. Okay? So this is what the invading army nations will do. They will come, they will devastate Jerusalem, and they will trample it down, they will destroy it, and they will impose their own rulership over the land. And they will try to rule over God's people. That is what the invading armies of the nations will do. And that's what they have done. So yes, these invader nations and their army will take over the land of Israel and rule over the true people of Israel, making them an object of scorn, belittling the power of their God. The invaded nations will scatter the true people of Israel as slaves among the nations. And that is what the invading army nations have done to the people of Israel. They were captured and sold as captives and as slaves among the nations. They were scattered away from the promised land. That's why we ended up at the corners of the earth, because the true people of Israel were removed and scattered by the invading army nations as slaves among the nations. So the good question is this: who are these invaded nations and their armies? Also, who are these known as the Man of Lawlessness? Who are these invaded nations that was foretold that will come against the land of Immanuel and will cause a lot of trouble? The first one of them that came against Israel is the Assyrian army that came against Israel. The second one is the Babylonian nation and their army. They marched against Judah, and they took the inhabitants of Judah and Jerusalem into captivity for 70 years. The third one is the Grecian army that came and took over the land. And they trampled the land by introducing idolatry and all other atrocities that they did in the land of Israel, and scattered it and sold the people of Judah and Israel away from their land. And finally, the last invading army that came against the true people of Israel is the Roman army, the Roman Empire, and their army. They came against Israel, and by 70th CE, they have devastated the land of Israel and scattered and sold many Israelites as slaves. So these invaded nations' armies, they came successively against the people of Israel until they have completely annihilated the true people of Israel away from the promised land and from their inheritance as servants and priests of Yahuwah. That is the harm that the invading army has caused to the people of Israel. They devastated the land and have caused great harm and took over the inheritance of Israel. In the book of Lamentation, chapter 5, verse 1 to 10, there is written, "Remember, O Yahuwah, what has befallen us. Say, look and see our disgrace. Our inheritance has been turned over to strangers, our houses to foreigners. We have become orphans without a father. Our mothers are like widows. We must pay to drink our own water, and our own wool comes at a price. So those pursuing us are at our neck. So we are weary, but we are given no rest. We hold out our hands to Egypt and to Assyria to get enough bread to eat. Our forefathers who sinned are no more, but we must bear their error. Servants now rule over us. There is no one to snatch us from their hands. We bring our own bread at the risk of our own life because of the sword of the wilderness. Our skin has become dark as furnace because of the pangs of hunger. So yes, it was written that our inheritance was taken over by strangers. These invaded nations, they came against the land of Immanuel, and they took over the land of Israel. And the true people of Israel, they scattered away from their land, their promised land. Now among this nation, we must pay to drink our water. And so many calamities that has befallen the people, the true people of Israel. So in the book of 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 1 to 10, Apostle Paul put it this way regarding these invaded nations. Or he gave them a title known as the Man of Lawlessness. He wrote the things that they will do. There is written, however, brothers, concerning the presence of our Lord Yahushua and our being gathered together to him. So we ask you not to be quickly shaken from your reason, nor be alarmed either by an inspired statement, or by a spoken message, or by a letter appearing to be from us. to the effect that the day of Yahuwah is here. So let no one lead you astray in any way, because it will not come unless the apostasy comes first, and the man of lawlessness gets revealed, the son of destruction. He stands in opposition and exalts himself above every so-called God or object of worship, so that he sits down in the temple of God publicly, declaring himself to be a God. So do you not remember that when I was with you, I used to tell you these things, and now you know what is acting as a restraint, so that he may be revealed at his own due time. Say true, the mystery of lawlessness is already at work, but only until the one who is right now acting as a restraint is out of the way. Then indeed the lawless one will be revealed, whom the Lord Yahuwah will do away with the spirit of his mouth, and bring to nothing by the manifestation of his presence. But the lawless one's presence is by the oppression of Satan, with every powerful works and lying signs and wonders, and every unrighteous deceptions for those who are perishing, as a retribution, because they did not accept the love of the truth, in order that they might be saved. So Apostle Paul wrote and said that this man of lawlessness will come. That is the Roman Empire, and that they will invade the land of Immanuel, as is written, and they will exalt themselves in places of worship as God, and they will sit in the temple of God and publicly showing themselves or their image to be a God. So they will come and cause harm, take over the inheritance of Israel, and start teaching people lies, and start misleading the people. They will change the image of God to their own kind. Yes, they will come to the land of Immanuel, and they will exalt themselves against every so-called God. And all this must take place before the true people of Israel is to be gathered back to the promised land, to their land. Yes, all this must take place before the true people of Israel is brought or gathered back to their land. The man of lawlessness, the invader army nations, will come, and they will cause harm to the land of Immanuel. For that is what is written. So as I already told them, they should cause harm, and they should do what they like, but their plans will not succeed. Yes, their plans will be thwarted, for God is with us. So, yes, these invading army nations came against the land of Immanuel, and they took over the land. And they took over the inheritance of Israel, and they scattered the people of Israel away from the promised land. So who are the present day invaders and occupiers of the land of Immanuel? Who are the present day invaders and occupiers of the land of Immanuel? So today, the land of Immanuel is still being occupied by invader armies and peoples of the Gentile nations. For the land was given to the Gentile nations to trample for until 2300 years. 2300 years have passed. So today it is being occupied by those who say they are Jews, but they are not, and they are lying. Yes, it's being occupied by those who say they are Jews, but they are not, but they are lying. The true people of Israel are scattered away from the land, and they will not return until the appointed time given to the nations to trample the land of Israel is completed. So those who are now in the land claiming that they are Jews or they are Israelites, they are not, they are lying, because according to what is written, the true people of Israel will be scattered among the nations, bearing punishment for their error until the appointed time that Yahuwah, Immanuel, will gather them back to their land. So in the book of Revelation, chapter 2, verse 9, there is written, I know your tribulation and the poverty, but you are rich, and the blasphemy of those who call themselves Jews and really are not, for they are synagogue of Satan. So yes, these ones that will come and invade and take over the land of Israel, they are synagogue of Satan or congregation of Satan. They are in agreement with Satan. I remember what Paul wrote in the book of Thessalonians. He said the presence of this man of lawlessness is by the operation of who? Satan the devil. He's the one that moved them or controlling those that have come to take over the land of Immanuel. Yes, 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 9 and 11, there is written, but the lawless one present is by the operation of Satan, with every powerful works and lying signs and wonders, and every unrighteous deception for those who are perishing, as a retribution because they did not accept the love of the truth, in order that they might be saved. That is why God let a deluding influence mislead them, so that they may come to believe a lie. So those who refuse to accept the fact that the true Israelite descendants are the Negroes, they're not the Caucasians, they choose to believe a lie, because the lawless one will do what? One will operate with powerful works and signs and wonders to mislead those who refuse to accept the truth of who the true descendants of Israel are, the true chosen ones of Abraham. But by their fruits you can identify these men. That is what the Messiah said. Because the true descendants of Abraham are in punishment. They will be enslaved by many nations. Before in their fourth generation they will return to inherit the land forever. So, yes, the true people of Israel is scattered among the nations because these invader nations and their armies took over the promised land by force. Yes, with force they took over the promised land. These lawless nations established themselves and their people in the Holy Land. They sit in the temple of God, making themselves and their image to be a god. And they are misleading many. So what will Immanuel do to the invaders of his land? What will Immanuel do to the invaders of his land? What will Immanuel do to the invaders of his land? It was written, the presence of the invaders is of Satan the devil. He's the one that have moved them to take over the land of Israel by force. So therefore Yahuwah will destroy them at his return from heaven, and will gather them, and will gather back the lordship of the house of Israel back to their land inheritance. In the book of Isaiah chapter 8 verse 9 and 10 there is written, say, cause harm you people, but you will be shattered to pieces. Say, listen all you from the distant part of the earth. Say, prepare for battle, for you will be shattered to pieces. Prepare for battle, for you will be shattered to pieces. Say, devise a plan, but it will be thwarted. Say what you like, but it will not succeed, for God is with us. So these invader nations are asked to do what? To prepare for battle, because Yahuwah is returning with his angels ready for battle. And these invader nations that have taken over the land of Israel by force, they should prepare for battle. For Yahuwah is coming back with armies of heavens to fight against these invader armies that have taken over his land. So in the book of Matthew chapter 24 verse 4, there is written, in answer Yahuwah said to them, said, look out that nobody mislead you, because these invader armies will come and take over the land of Israel, and they will call themselves Israel, and they will call themselves the chosen people, and they will mislead many to believe a lie. And all those who believe this lie will be destroyed at the return of Immanuel with his army from heaven. So do not let anyone mislead you. In the book of 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 verse 3, there is written, let no one lead you what? Astray, or mislead you away in any way, because it will not come unless the apostasy comes first, and the man of lawlessness gets revealed, the son of destruction. So it was foretold that this man of lawlessness will first come. These invaders will come and mislead the people, and will cause harm to the true people of Israel. So do not let these invaders mislead you in any way to worship the same God as their God. So do not let these invader nations mislead you with their plan to take over the land and inheritance of Israel forever. It will not succeed, for God is with us. At the appointed time, Immanuel will return, Yahuwah will return with his armies from heaven, And he will deal with these invaders and their armies, and he will cast them away from the land promised to Abraham and his chosen descendants to inherit forever. So, until I come to you next time, keep searching, keep seeking for truth. Do not let anyone mislead you. Keep digging for the true treasure in what is written. Leave the gods of the given to you by the nations alone, and seek Yahuwah, the Holy One of Israel. For whatever he has foretold are the things that must take place. For he is a God that tells the future from the beginning. So until I come to you next time, I thank you.